break down the service lines you offer your customers?
I'll use an example of a project, and that'll help to break down the services that we offer to our customers. I'll use an example of a manufacturing facility for two reasons. One, it's probably the most comprehensive project in terms of all the services that we throw at it. That's number one. And number two is because that's like 80% of our work right now, where we're at in terms of the economic cycle and what's going on in North America from a location strategy perspective. So manufacturing company comes to us and says, we're going to build a new plant somewhere. We don't know where it's going to be. Immediately there is a supply chain implication. So as they manufacture their product in a new place, their supply chain will have to shift, pivot.
When you say supply chain, not a lot of people know what supply chain is. So why don't you just explain that a little?
So for a manufacturing facility, it would be the inbound transportation of raw materials and the outbound transportation of finished product to their customers or into the markets in which they sell their product. So it's the moving of materials that either become part of the cost of goods sold or become the product itself. And so for a manufacturing facility, that becomes paramount. You need to be near the place where you're getting the stuff that you're going to use to make your product, and then you need to be as accessible to your consumer markets as possible. There's a supply chain implication to the location of a manufacturing plant. You also need people to work in manufacturing plants. Yes, they are getting more automated, but there's still an awful lot of people who work in these facilities, many of whom have a great deal of specialty, and many of the places where you can find abundant manufacturing or production talent in the United States are very, very crowded companies that are making stuff. And so you've got to be really intentional about making sure that you're choosing a geographic market where you're going to be able to staff the operation.
You mentioned once to me, when you're looking at these markets, you also have to look at age, right? If the labor pool is all in their 60s or late 50s, and you're going to open up a place and suddenly they're going to be out in 5 years, retired, that's not a good sight.
I'll tell you what we think a lot about as it relates to future access to workers is the educational pipeline, the training pipelines that exist within these geographies. And I use an example of a project that we completed recently in a Midwestern state, a metal fabrication facility for an appliance company. Hugely metal fabrication, hugely labor dependent. They were going to need more than 1,000 employees at any given time. And what we were really interested in was how the local community, middle schools, high schools, trade schools, you name it, everyone who is helping to create the workforce of the future, how they aligned to ensure that this company and others who were going to be making things in this state, how they were going to have access to talent in the future. And there are places that do this very, very well, meaning that they introduce the trades in compelling ways in middle school and high school. They have wonderful trade schools that offer great educational opportunities. There's funding for it in many states. If you want to be a welder, for example, or a CNC operator, for example, you can do that with state grants. Many of them are funded by the lottery. And so if an 18-year-old wants to become a welder, he or she can do that for free. Those are the places that we can confidently put these big plants in and know that the educational leaders, the community leaders, the state lawmakers, they are serious about being able to provide the workforce of the future.
That's an excellent point.
Yeah, it's something we think about a lot, because you put $1 billion facility somewhere, you're going to look pretty stupid if in 5 years you can't fill it with people who can run the place. We got supply chain, we've got labor. There's huge tax implications to where you put these facilities. So different states tax property, whether it's business personal property like equipment or real property like real estate. They tax those differently. They tax them from a sales and use perspective differently. They tax from a property tax perspective differently. There's different withholding tax structures in terms of how personal income tax is calculated. There's different corporate income tax structures. So whether you put a manufacturing facility in one state versus another can have humongous tax implications. So we have to have some expertise there to be able to do a comparative analysis of that.